My name is Tori Sinclair, and I'm 33 years old. I bought my lake house with my own money, 4 years of overnight shifts, skipped vacations, and a savings account I guarded like it was the last thing on earth. Nobody helped me. Not my parents, not my sister Becca, nobody. I did it alone, and I was proud of that. The house sat on the edge of Cedar Lake, 2 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, and water so still in the mornings it looked like glass. It was mine. Every nail, every mortgage payment, every single square foot mine. What I didn't know was that my family had already decided it belonged to them. Let me back up. For 5 years, 5 full years, I had been quietly covering my parents' mortgage. Not because they asked once and I said yes. Because the first time I said yes, it just never stopped. My dad, Roland, had a bad knee that kept him off construction sites, and my mom, Patricia, had always been more interested in managing the household drama than earning anything. So I stepped in. I was the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who never said no. Every month, without fail, I transferred $1,100 into their account. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself they'd get back on their feet. I kept telling myself that for 60 months straight. Then Becca got engaged. My sister Becca is 28, and she has spent her entire adult life being everyone's favorite. Not because she worked harder or loved deeper, but because she simply required less guilt to love. She never pushed back. She never inconvenienced anyone. She smiled at the right moments and cried at the right moments, and my parents melted every single time. When she announced she was marrying her boyfriend, Connor, the whole family erupted like it was the second coming. I was genuinely happy for her. I smiled, I hugged her, I even offered to help plan the reception. What I didn't expect was the announcement that came 3 weeks later at Sunday dinner. My mom set down her fork, looked across the table like she was delivering blessed news, and told me they had gifted the house to Becca and Connor as a wedding present. Just like that. The house I had been paying for. The house that should have gone to reducing their debt, rebuilding their finances, securing their retirement, gone. Signed over. A wedding gift. My dad didn't even look up from his plate. Becca reached over and squeezed my mom's hand and said it was the most generous thing anyone had ever done for her. I sat there and said nothing. I couldn't find a single word. My brain just went quiet. I stopped the payments the following week. I didn't make a speech about it. I didn't send a long text explaining my feelings. I just stopped. I figured that was obvious enough. If the house was gone, the mortgage was gone with it. My responsibility had ended the moment they signed those papers. For about 6 weeks, nothing happened. Then my mom called. She didn't call to apologize. She didn't call to acknowledge what they had done or what I had sacrificed. She called to tell me that she and my dad needed a place to live now that they had given the house away. They had been staying with Becca and Connor temporarily, but apparently that arrangement was already wearing thin. Connor wanted his space. Becca wanted her newlywed privacy, and my parents needed somewhere permanent. My mom said it calmly, practically, like she was reading from a list. And then she said the part that stopped my heart cold. She said the lake house made the most sense. She said it had 2 bedrooms, it was paid off, and I was only one person who didn't need all that space. She said family takes care of family. She said it like I hadn't spent 5 years proving exactly that. She said it like the words had no weight at all. I told her no. There was a pause on the line. Then she said she was sure I'd think about it and come around. I told her there was nothing to think about. She said that was a very cold thing to say to your mother. I said gifting away a house someone else paid for was also a pretty cold thing to do. She didn't respond to that. She just said she hoped I'd reconsider, and she hung up. I sat on my porch that night watching the lake go dark, and I thought maybe that was the end of it. Maybe they'd push a little, I'd hold firm, and eventually everyone would find a way to move on. I genuinely believed the worst was behind me. But then 2 weeks later, there was a knock at my door, and when I opened it, I found 2 police officers standing on my porch. 2 officers, both in uniform, one of them holding a clipboard. My first thought was that something terrible had happened. An accident, a fire, someone hurt. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. I gripped the door frame and asked them what was wrong. The taller one, Officer Reyes, looked at me with an expression that was more confused than serious, and he asked if I was Tori Sinclair. I said yes. He said they had received a report that I was unlawfully occupying a property that did not belong to me. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because my brain genuinely could not process what I had just heard. I asked him to repeat it. He did. Someone had called and reported that I was living in a lake house that was not legally mine, and that the rightful owners were being denied access. I stood there in my own doorway, in the house I had purchased with my own name on the deed, and I was being told I might be a trespasser. Officer Reyes seemed almost apologetic about it. He said they were required to follow up on every report. He asked if I could show proof of ownership. I went inside, pulled out my deed, my closing documents, and 3 years of mortgage statements, all in my name, all spotless. Officer Reyes looked them over for about 90 seconds, handed them back, and told me everything looked completely legitimate. He said there was nothing further to investigate. His partner, a younger officer named Webb, looked genuinely uncomfortable the entire time. Before they left, Reyes told me quietly that whoever had made the call had either been badly misinformed or had been hoping the situation would play out very differently. I knew exactly who had made that call. I called my mom the second the patrol car pulled out of the driveway. She answered on the second ring, which told me she had been waiting. I didn't raise my voice. I had made a decision somewhere between opening the door and finding my deed that I was done performing emotions for people who had already decided how little I mattered. I told her calmly that sending police to my home was the clearest possible sign that we had crossed into territory I was not willing to come back from. She told me she didn't know what I was talking about. I told her I didn't believe that for even 1 second. She shifted immediately, said she was just trying to make me understand how serious the situation was, that she and my dad were struggling, that family was supposed to show up for each other. I told her I had shown up for 5 years, and she had given the evidence of that away as a wedding present. She went quiet. Then she said I was being selfish. I told her that word had clearly lost all meaning in our family. Then I told her something I had been carrying for a long time, that I loved her, that I had loved her enough to sacrifice years of my own financial progress to keep a roof over her head, and that love was not the same thing as having no limits. I told her I was done. Not forever, maybe, but for now, completely. She hung up before I finished the sentence. What happened over the next few weeks was not dramatic. There were no big confrontations, no family meetings, no tearful reconciliations. My dad left one voicemail that was mostly silence, and then him saying he hoped I was doing okay. Becca sent me a text saying I was tearing the family apart. I didn't respond to either. My Aunt Cheryl, my mom's younger sister, called me privately and told me she had always thought the house situation was wrong. She said it quietly, like it was a secret, which told me the rest of the family had probably discussed it more than once and decided to stay silent. I found out through Cheryl that my parents eventually moved into a small rental 2 towns over. Connor had apparently helped them find it and covered the first month. Which meant Becca's husband, the man they had just handed a house to, was now more financially invested in my parents' welfare than I was. I sat with that for a long time. I didn't feel guilty. I felt strangely, quietly free. The lake house is still mine. I sit on that porch most mornings with coffee, watching the water, and I think about how close I came to handing it over just to avoid the discomfort of saying no. How many years I spent confusing guilt with love, obligation with loyalty. I paid their mortgage for 5 years because I thought that was what good daughters did. What I know now is that being a good daughter does not mean disappearing into someone else's choices until there is nothing left of your own. I kept my house. I kept my boundaries. And for the first time in a very long time, I kept myself. If this story hit close to home for you, you are not alone, and if you want more stories like this one, please subscribe to the channel. It genuinely means everything, and there is so much more coming.